That Saratoga handicapping store is open at drf.com. Shop.drf.com will take you right to the goods, past performances, DRF picks, clocker reports every racing day, and then betting strategies on Saturdays where you can get additional help. We're going to give you some free additional help here all throughout the meet at Saratoga. I'll probably have videos most days at Saratoga, so you'll want to subscribe right now to that YouTube channel. Go ahead and click that subscribe, throw a like on the videos. They help get them shared all around. And most of the days joining me will be my good friend who's here with me today, at least one card a week, probably 2 cards a week coming up for the next 6 weeks or so, because we have Saratoga starting this week and we have Del Mar starting next week. So the premier racing tracks during the summer, Barry, will both be rocking and rolling as of next weekend. We will have big races, quality fields, quantity races, just everything we want as horse players. And we're going to head to drf.com and always dive into those daily racing form past performances.
Man, this time of year is just the greatest for horse players. I mean, you have the 2 boutique meets, Saratoga and Del Mar, starting up. And I mean, it's full speed ahead, everything going forward from this point until like Labor Day. So it's going to be a great time.
And last year, Saratoga had a really bad, unlucky meet just from like everything. It's one of those things where just from the beginning, rest in peace, they had some bad luck with some horses that just had some really, really bad incidents. We lost some stars of the sport. The weather was so bad. They couldn't have any luck with the weather. Every time it seemed like it was going to turn, it would just come pouring down. Races were taken off the grass. You end up losing handle because horses get scratched all over the place. It was just anything that could go wrong really did. And then they had the 4 days of racing at Saratoga for the Belmont Racing Festival, and it was like the opposite. You heard everybody talking about how the energy was so great and so amazing, and that's what horse racing's all about. And I know Saratoga will be really excited to just try to get that as the feeling back this summer meet. And they kick off, Barry, with some great cards the first few days. Just really good cards. You and I are recording on Monday, July the 8th, Monday evening, and they're drawing their cards earlier this year, which is great for all of us as handicappers because the races are just out a little bit earlier for us. It gives us more time to handicap before we go. And they're going to already, as of Monday, we have the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday cards all out. They'll draw the Sunday card on Wednesday, a day earlier than normal for Sunday as well. So lots of opportunity for us as handicappers to, just to do the research, put the time in. We know that, these are the big meets that we love to play. So let's see if we can point you in the right direction a few times. Barry and I will start on opening day, Thursday. We're going to look at July the 11th past performances, and we'll be talking about the late pick 5 races 7 through 11, a really difficult sequence as you're going to expect. I mean, most of these sequences out at Saratoga are going to be challenging. Let's do this, Barry. Let's jump on in, my friend. It's so funny. I get so used to talking to you so often that when I don't talk to you for that 1 week in between, it feels like it's been like a year, right?
For real.
It's like, man, I just get so used to it. So you'll get annoyed by me quite a bit coming up in the next 6 weeks. Don't you worry. As we start with one of your favorites, a nice turf sprint and a real challenging one, going 5.5 on the turf. And we have New York breds. These are second level allowance horses, non-winners of 2. I mean, I didn't even know as far as the odds are concerned. This was probably one of the toughest jobs David had to do from a race where you've got, I'm Just Kidding, who has some of the better form, but that form all came last year and only has 1 race since that, which was in January. So kind of a lot to prove down there. A horse like Salib, who might be wanting a little bit longer than this. Like all of her form has gone, better at more than 5 at longer distances than the 5.5 here. Ms. Big Bucks makes sense. I think a horse that'll be logical in the mix. Same thing with Weekend Rags, Marco T. These are horses who are in good form at these sprint distances. So they make sense as logical players in here. But I did think this was going to be a challenging race with money sort of spread around a little bit. And I mean, very difficult for me to just reach out and grab onto one or two horses in here. I'm going to need a few.
Yeah, this is definitely a kind of wide open event. Although, you kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit. Speaking about I'm Just Kidding and Salib, um, I'm Just Kidding has done his best work going longer, way longer. Route races, a mile and 16th mile, those kind of races. Has a 5.5 furlong win at Saratoga to break the maiden, but I think that horse was just better than the competition
Yeah.
that day. And you'll see that a lot through the past performances where horses either do something they don't really normally do, like go to the lead, and beat horses that are lesser in those maiden special weight races, and then they come back and then they kind of show their true form. Same thing with Solib a little bit here too. I wouldn't blame anybody for liking this horse in this spot,
Yeah, me
but
neither.
I just
Neither
think
the
the
1 or the
price,
3. They just will
right,
probably be shorter from what we're like, we haven't really seen them prove this recently, right?
right,
Can
and
sprinting on the turf recently, and they're going to be very short, I think, just in comparison to some of the others who have shown that they can do that.
yeah, and it's all about value and price in here. Um, I think Salib is probably a better bet than, let's say, I'm Just Kidding, only
Yeah,
because this horse
I'd
it's
agree.
just the running style
She can get
kind of
it.
hurts.
There are versions of this race where you could see them going fast enough that it would help Solib, right?
Right.
I think it just might be a little short for her going 5.5 because at 6 last time out, she was about 7 or 8 lengths off. She started, and they were flying though early. So keep in
Mhm.
mind, they were going sub 44 that day. So she got outrun just a little bit, but she did close very well. She was out in the 4-5 path. She got up for second that day. She was in front of Ms. Big Bucks, her rival, right to her outside. But Ms. Big Bucks might be better going a little shorter here. I think maybe just based on her running style, because she's got some tactical speed. I like the fact that she kind of showed she can sit and pounce a little bit in her first start at 4 last year, in her last start. That was her first start since November. She's probably one of the horses I want to use just because I think she's going to be in the mix. I don't love her, but I could see her just falling into a pretty good trip in here.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you. I think Ms. Big Bucks could turn the tables on Salib, especially with the way the race is probably going to shape up. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like the 5 Queen's Dancer and a couple of others might have to go to the lead. And in fact, I might, Irad might want to get the one involved a lot earlier
Yeah.
than expected,
Yep.
just to get position. Same thing with Concerti. The two will
See,
probably
this is a
have to
horse I'm
go.
throwing in at a huge price. If I'm playing in one of my tickets, I'm throwing the 2 in solely based on I think she's the fastest horse in here.
Very
For
well
for
could be.
just look and if everybody sits a little bit off, because I don't think she's not the one's not as fast, the 3's not as fast. Miss Big Bucks isn't that quick. She's gone faster, going a little bit longer. Queen's Dancer, I don't think she's quite as classy or with that
No,
kind of
but
speed. But she's
just
the
to
one, the
to
pace
get in the way,
to be a
right?
nuisance of the pace horses. The long shot that I would throw in would be the 2. But again, I'm throwing in a few horses in here. She's a price horse that I could just see with Saez out there hanging around because she just didn't have a shot last time out. She couldn't. She just missed the break. And then she kind of got crossed over on. And then you started going kind of back through her races, like 2 starts back, going 6 at Aqueduct. She's going to be a little bit shorter here, and that was the race where they were flying. She was setting those wicked fractions, going sub 44 that day. Yeah, I mean, that was just her first start on the turf. I think for a flyer in here, she's interesting. I kind of thought the 6,
Yeah,
and
Weekend Rags. Yeah,
yeah,
I had the 4, Miss Big Bucks, Weekend Rags, and then the long shot I had was the 8,
yep,
Patria. But I agree. I think we're looking at this the same,
hmm
except we just have different
a
long
couple different,
shots.
yeah, a couple different horses here, which is what you're supposed to. Patria comes off a win recently at Laurel and has really nice tactical speed. Now will make the 3rd start of the form cycle, so can take another step forward here. Some of that good turf sprint form, and then Weekend Rags. It just looking at Weekend Rag's overall form, her grass races are really good, and she fits very well. She could sit a nice trip. In the most recent start, she was fourth. She was about 3 deep in that second flight. Pretty nice victory. She was always just traveling really well, and now she goes third start off the bench. She can take a nice little step forward here.
Yeah, she definitely can, but a lot of these horses have question marks. They don't like to win very much, and
No,
Weekend Rags is another one.
she's
She has
one of like
four
they're all
thirds,
in the
two
mix,
wins.
right?
Right.
All these horses, they're not separated. It feels like by all that much. And then the horses who are the shorter prices, we have some serious questions about. Like we pointed out with I'm Just Kidding, with Solib. I think even a horse like the 7 Marco T, who fits class wise with this group, she's another who's not that fast early on. She wants to come from a little bit more off the pace in here. And if there's not that much speed and they're cutting back a little bit to 5.5, she might be a little farther back than normal or have to deal with some traffic. So, it's going to solely be about trip, like a lot of these turf sprint races are. And I think you need a few. That's why when we came back to the 4, she might be one that can kind of stay out of some of the traffic and get the jump on a lot of these horses.
Yeah, that's probably the plan. I will say this though: if Spiteful Lily gets in, and this is off the turf and it's wet, there's no beating that horse in this race. if if this one rains off the turf and it's a sloppy or wet track, Spiteful Lily will not lose. Um, but beyond that, it's kind of a toss up. I would use the longer prices, like in a pick 5 situation, like we're talking about. I'm going to use the longer prices here, just to start it off and kind of chuck the favorites.
Definitely 4 and 6 in the mix for me and Barry as like logical horses who will probably be the second tier of prices. I threw in a big price of the 2 Concerti. Barry mentions the 8 as a big price, Patria as a horse to use, and hopefully we can lead you in the right direction to kick things off in this pick 5 on opening day, the late pick 5, as we move to race number 8. If you hear any noise in the background, apologies to some of the gardeners getting started up right now, but I'm pretty loud, so I'll do my best to talk over them. I think you'll still be able to hear plenty. As we get to race number 8, Barry, this one will start that late pick 4 sequence. They'll go a mile and a 16th on the turf course in here. We just wanted to point out the one horse that I like, and then I'll hand the baton over to you. I'm going to start with Silent Melody, the 5 in here. This is a horse who has been on the grass in her entire career. And I think when you really kind of go through a lot of the recent form, her last couple races just make a ton of sense. The maiden breaking win a few starts back on April the 6th. And that's in a race that's kind of at this level, kind of similar to this spot. That was over at Gulfstream Park. And then following that, May the 9th and then June the 14th, facing winners and some of the horses that are in this race. Well, on May the 9th, she gets caught inside in a bad spot. She's got nowhere to go, and she's pinned in. She's, traveling pretty well. She's not going to win this race, but she's going to be a little bit closer. She was just behind the pace setter, and she just never really got a chance to run until it was too late, and it was early in the stretch, and then the field had kind of separated from her. So that May 9th race, it's a little better than it looks on paper. She comes back on June the 14th, and she moves down to the inside and she's saving ground. She's getting a really nice trip, about 5th, 2 or 3 lengths off. She's up to 3rd and she's only 2 lengths off. But again, she just gets pinned in. Nowhere to go. She gets stopped. She's waiting behind horses. She angles around. She gets up to 2nd, but she tires a little bit that day. It's just about timing for her. And she gets a very nice pilot to jump aboard with Pratt. So she's one that'll be in the mix for me in pick 4s and pick 5. She's 6-1. But give us a few that are going to be on your radar in here.
Yeah, I took a long look at Silent Melody also. I'm just not sure about that horse. I would definitely demand a price there because I'm not sure if this horse really wants to go over a mile. I mean, her 2 best races were at a mile, flat mile, and then she kind of runs wishy-washy, anything beyond that. But, has every right to win this race. Class-wise, fits, style-wise, fits, just needs a trip, like you were saying. But 2 horses that were on my radar. One is the 4 Lakeside Getaway. I think this horse is, going to be in a good spot, especially being forwardly placed. There doesn't look like there's too much speed in here. I think the pace will be, fair, but not fast. Um, I don't really. I think if there is any kind of indication of this, which there really isn't, at least on paper, I don't think that they're going to be all trying to rush to the lead here. um, Grab the Glory has some speed, but I don't even think that one will want to go to the front in this race. Spring Magic, the 7, is a horse that probably is better off on the lead, but I don't think they really want it either. So this makes this race really, really difficult, top to bottom, because everybody's going to be kind of log jammed on that one spot, you know, kind of second flight, and you can get horses stacked up and they'll come out wide. But um, and it kind of hurts the horses that I do like, the 9 and the 10, LS Forte and Sizzle. I like
Yep.
Sizzle a lot better, because the horse really doesn't have too many knocks at this
No.
point, compared to LS Forte. But LS Forte has been running some really, really good races down at the fairgrounds, came back to uh, Belmont at Aqueduct, and ran a decent race in this sort of level. So I think that one might be okay in this spot, but I wouldn't take too short of a price on a horse like that either, coming off that kind of a layoff. And this group is a lot more saltier than what she's been facing.
Yeah,
Um,
she'll come closing. Like you know what you're gonna get from her. She's pretty
right.
honest. She's going to launch that late rally. She just needs a little bit of a trip. She needs some pace. I think she's in this race just because she's been facing a little bit better. And I think she's kind of like a measuring stick for the race. Like
Yes.
I wouldn't be singling her, but if you're spreading out in this race, she's probably one that you're using because she starts winding up and if they're going like I agree with you. I think the pace of this race is a little challenging because there are versions of this race where some of those horses go, but I don't know how fast and I wasn't sure either how contentious. I was looking for horses from more off the pace, but like you said, I don't know if it's going to be all that fast. And then there could be a version where Diamond Status goes, then the 4 goes, Lakeside Getaway, which she can sit a little bit. The race that I liked was the September one at Colonial, which shows you that she has no problem sitting off a little bit if she has to. Could even see Pratt trying to get a little aggressive, which we've seen when Silent Melody finished third a couple starts back. We could see Grab the Glory stretching out from a sprint and Spring Magic. So then all of a sudden, they could go quick. And I think because of that, I'm going to use the 10 also, as you pointed out. She's just done very little wrong. She's not that fast early, but with the outside draw, that may not hurt her if she's just going to drop back and try to make one late run and hopefully not just get parked out. That race at Gulfstream she comes out of last time, that was a first level allowance race in comparison to this, where you have, most of these horses who have probably been facing a little bit lesser as of recently. So, yeah, those outside 2 probably both in the mix for me as well, along with the 5 who I had mentioned earlier on. And like we said, these races aren't going to be easy. Right, to hit these pick 5s and pick 4s and string 4 and 5 wins together, it's going to be really, really challenging. You got to try to shorten up in the races that you feel a little confident. Take a stand 1 spot or 2 if you can single or maybe go too deep. Remember, Barry and I are sitting here not as people who are playing tickets bigger than like ever a couple $100. Like I'm
Right.
not
Yeah.
someone who's
I
like
don't.
playing 4 by 5 by 5 by 5 by 5. You just can't do that, unfortunately. Like you always will have to pick a spot. So I think for most people, when you're playing these summer meets, the numbers that we've talked about are like 48, 72, 96, 108, 120, 144, 180. Those are numbers that because that's pretty a lot. I think a lot of us bettors are playing tickets in that range, and we're hoping to hit for 600, 1,000, up to the 10,000 and above, especially the way that we play our tickets. We're very rarely would be hitting for less
Yeah.
if we're going to connect them.
The real challenge is, especially in these pick 5 sequences at places like, Keeneland or Turfway, Saratoga, where there's really deep competitive fields, is you got to get good at the skill of being able to find out which races are the chaos races.
Yeah,
And it's
and you
hard.
can eliminate in some races, right, and
Right,
just
and that
shorten
that
up, like
way, right, exactly, and that helps you construct your ticket in the way that is economically sound, as well as, you know, the right choices as far as, you know, where you fall in those kind of races. So if you think this race in particular is wide open, sure, spread here, but you're probably going to have to find somebody else to, you know, think that the race, or any other of these 4 or 5 races, where you can zero in on somebody that you really like, or have an idea that's smaller. You know what I mean? Where you have a couple of horses rather
yep,
than 5, you
yeah.
have 2, things like that,
Well,
where you
and the
can
key is
kind of
too, like
whittle it down.
what I like to do a lot of times too, because some people don't like singling or you don't feel confident. A lot of times, what's nice is in one of those chaotic races that you're talking about, you know, you pick 2 of the type of horses that we're looking at, right? 2 of those 6-1 to 10-1 shots in that
Mhm.
range, and you feel like, okay, I've got a couple shots with these price horses that I like. It's given me a couple. You know, if you hit and you're moving along, it's going to be paying well, because the 2 horses the only options that you had in that race were nice prices, were probably the 5th choice or 6th choice in that race or whatever it was. So as much as it is finding the winner, sometimes throughout the meet, especially these meets, and I want to try to do this a little bit more in the videos too. I'm going to be a little annoying sometimes and just trying to remind you things that I need to remind myself sometimes, right? A lot of this about how we're wagering, about, you know, just, you know, things to keep in mind when you're formulating your tickets at these big meets, because you could get kind of caught up in a blur now. They're racing a little more often. There's a lot more races. You throw in a couple extra horses and a couple extra tickets, and all of a sudden, boom, you're down pretty quickly and you've lost a lot of money. You don't want to do that with these meets starting up. You want to play smart and, you know, just be ready to do a little bit more work, I think, because it's just a little bit harder. And that's where
Yeah, yeah,
we're, you know, here to hopefully help you each and every day with a lot of these races. A tough one in the
yeah.
eighth.
It's
What
what I like to call, it's the difference between finding a winner and falling into a winner.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that people tend to not allow themselves to do, just by the way they construct their tickets.
Yep. 2 and the 3 were horses I was getting tricky reads on here, because I could
Yeah.
see they fit class wise. Just kind of what trips are they going to get? You know, Cannon Fire will now go 3rd start back off of a pretty long layoff. 3rd start for the new barn. She took a step forward from her 1st to her 2nd start. So I could see her showing a little bit of improvement. More Than Glory, she's probably the type of horse that people might look at right away and want to dismiss just because they see Penn or Parks. But I don't know. She doesn't seem too far off of being competitive in a group like this with kind of limited turf form, where she's been pretty decent at Penn, at Laurel, at Ellis, at, you know, Fairgrounds. She's been on 5 turf races at 5 different tracks, and she's run pretty well at 4 of them.
Yeah, I mean, she's doing really, really well. It's just, I'm not really sure. You know,
She
that's a tricky read, because she looks like she fits, but I don't know if she's going to be too far back early. You know, I would like to see a
see a race
race
from her
at
where
this
she kind of
company, right?
exactly, because it wouldn't shock me, but I'm a little curious if there's going to be any type of like Dettori money during this meet, because he's going to be riding a lot of horses there. I don't know if he's someone that will command that type of thing in a strong place like this, but we'll see if any of these horses get maybe overbet a little bit with him on there, just being a name that people know. But that's what made this race so difficult. A lot of these horses fit really well. Definitely going to have the 5 in the mix and the 9 and the 10, both of who you mentioned, Barry. And who else? Anyone else that you want? Or you mentioned the 4 also, right? Lakeside Getaway, who you
Yes.
like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is a tricky read. I really don't. I couldn't fault anybody for liking any one of these horses, and
No,
even if they singled one in this spot, that wouldn't surprise me either, because a horse like LS Forte does seem to stand out a little bit. You know,
just not a
just
win machine.
right, exactly, and
Like
you
her
gotta
form
gotta
is the
tread lightly.
best,
Yeah.
and she's got 13, 14 good races out of 22 on the grass. You feel like you consistently can expect a pretty good effort from her. A lot of those races have been against better, but with her running style, with kind of the question marks we have about what this race could be. Possibly could set up well for her. You just don't want to take too short of a price.
Right. That's what you got to really be careful for, because I think with a horse like that, the shorter the price, the worse it is.
Yeah, the less you're likely, right? If she's
Yes,
around where she is, 7-2, 4-1, you're okay
that's
throwing.
okay.
That's fine.
Hmm.
You throw her in, then that's once she starts getting to the 3 and below, you start feeling like, okay, yeah, she still fits really well with this group. But as far as on the win end, maybe you use your, that same bankroll to toss another horse in at a better price. That might be a
Yeah,
little bit
I
better
mean
value. It just
it's kind
depends.
of right. It's kind of one of those feel things where you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, I don't
How's the
really
rest of your
know.
ticket look too,
Yeah.
right? What are the prices like in other races? But she will be scary to not have on your ticket if she's within a couple lengths at the top of the lane,
Oh man.
right? Because if
Yeah.
you don't have her, she's going to come running, and a lot of these other horses don't really have proven all that much proven form going longer on the turf. So she could be gaining ground here for Gaining Ground LLC as we finish up with race number 8 on opening day at Saratoga. Moving on to race number 9, go a mile and an eighth on the main track in here. Some horses that we know the names a little bit with we'll start with the 6 and the 7. Blazing Sevens is a grade 1 winner, won the Champagne back in 2022 as a 2-year-old. Then at 3 was the runner-up in the Preakness behind National Treasure. And so far this year, came back. He's run twice at 4. Really nice 4-year-old debut. And then he tried the Met grade 1 company, just in too tough that day with National Treasure. White Abario was in there post time. I've never really been a big fan of this horse, but I will say most of those races have been against a lot tougher. So he does fit well in here. I'm not going to say that, I'm going to go bet this horse at 3-1 or 5-2, but in this spot, in a race that's not quite a stakes race, it's not an easy spot,
No,
but
not easy.
it's definitely a better spot for him than where he's been. He'll go third start of the Forum cycle. So I could see him running well in here. He's just still not a horse that I've ever thought was quite that good, or maybe progressed from 2 to where he is now.
I mean, he hasn't proven all that much since he turned 3,
No,
and now he's into his 4-year-old season, and really hasn't done very much. I mean, they had to drop him into a allowance race basically to try to get a win, and they did at Aqueduct. Then came back off that in the Met Mile and kind of threw a dud. Um, I really don't know what you're going to get, but I
no.
know I'm not going to be on this horse on Thursday. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's not a good, like, he's not an exciting prospect at what his price will be. And I guarantee he gets bet probably 5-2 just because of the races he comes out of. And he's a big connections play. Franco just comes off of winning another meet for Chad Brown. But like, to see him run better in this spot would not shock me at all, because this group doesn't outclass him. He's just like, this is probably where he should be right now.
Sure.
I think if I'm talking about horses to beat, I actually would prefer the horse next to him, Rocket Can, a little bit more, who I thought was like solid last year, and I could see him being nice. He's only made one start as a 4-year-old. It was a good one at Oaklawn. It was back in March. He was off for a little bit, but since then he's come back and started working in May and June, and he's worked consistently all the way up to this. Those 2 horses will probably take the most money in the race here. So I guess from a starting point, we can talk about Rocky Can as well.
Yeah, yeah, I like Rocket Can in this spot. I mean, Bill Mott does this quite frequently, where you have these horses that kind of get going the year prior and aren't as good. He lays them off.
Shelves
They
them.
come back, and they come back stronger at these strong meets.
Sure. Right?
And
Like
this
he's
horse was
figured them
well
out.
meant. Right. This horse was very well meant early on, and kind of got outclassed a little bit going into the Derby season, and you really haven't seen the horse since. Um, he ran once at Oaklawn back in March and ran pretty good that day. Got Lasix that day for the first time, and it may have been all the difference. Gets Lasix again and gets a spot that's way winnable. And I think that the pace scenario sets up very, very well for Rocket Can, a lot better than uh, Blazing Sevens, although they're going to probably be kind of around each other at the top of the stretch. I would think they're kind of going to be in the same spot, going for the same position, trying to forge ahead and go past the leaders. But I think this race might be a little bit more wide open than
Yeah, me
that.
too. I agree.
I like Warrior Johnny quite a bit here, especially off that last race. The horse seems to be finding his form again, and you can see back in June last year, this horse was kind of forwardly placed in a similar race, going 7.5. I know in this race they're going a lot longer, but just the fact that this horse is into the race,
In shorter, shows that he can be here if they
correct.
want
And
to.
and I think they're going to do that. I think Rosario's, they're not going to be on the engine by any means, but I don't think they're going to be way, way back or in striking distance. Um, and I think that might make all the difference. This horse can close pretty good and finish his races off. It's just a matter of being at the right spot when they push the button. One that really kind of interests me a lot here is the 1A Quality Chic. Um, I know this horse doesn't want the lead either, although you could say the last time that this horse ran uh, with Ramon Vasquez aboard, he was up on the engine, and I don't think that was the plan. It just happened that way because the stablemate Laughing Boy was in that race too and just didn't fire at all. And this one just missed the nose at the wire to Kinetic Sky at Aqueduct. This was March 2nd. And you see the horse, they bumped him up in class a little bit, and that was in a stake race. That was a 150K stake, the stymie at a mile uh, at Aqueduct. Bumped him up, came back down, didn't run so well, but I think this horse needs somewhat of a target. And I want to hope that Laughing Boy is in there to make sure that this pace is solid. I think it was solid anyway before the entry of Laughing Boy, but having Laughing Boy in here is definitely going to make this pace hot because
And I
Salute
don't
the
think
Stars
Film
will
Star
want
wants to sit. Yeah, he can't
no,
sit,
no.
right?
Film Star will have to go. Even Artorias might have to get involved a little bit
Or the
earlier
one
than they
from the
want.
rail wouldn't be
Yes,
shocking. Or the two. I mean, Salute the Stars, who's the number 2, but draws post position 1.
and I also have the notion the 10 Untreated will probably have to go.
Fresh. Just don't
Yes.
keep from being really
Yeah,
wide
they. I don't
from
think
out
they're
there.
they're really trying to win this race with
Yeah,
the
maybe
10.
set him up for a second start off the bench race, right? Because he ran well in the Jockey Club at Saratoga. So they think, hey, you know what? If we run well here, maybe we can get another race, maybe 2 or 3 races in the meet where he's run, his best buyer speed figure over this course when he finished 4th there. I like the 9 a little bit. Classic Catch. He was in that same race with the horse you like, Warrior Johnny, in the last 2 starts. And in that June 12th race, what happened, he was traveling really, really well. He was inside. He was sitting 3rd. He was just behind the leaders. He was within 2. He was just off the heels of Salute the Stars, who was showing the way. And Classic Catch had absolutely nowhere to go. He got shuffled back. He had to angle around 4 paths in the early stretch, and he just missed that day. I mean, it was really, really impressive, angling back and around. He's proven at Saratoga. He's proven at the distance. Johnny V jumps aboard, and he just feels like he's rounding back into form off of last year. When end of last year, they put him in a grass race just to take a shot there. Didn't like the grass. Then he's off till April. Shows back up in April. April and May races aren't bad, but he's building the stamina up. And then he shows a lot more positional speed in that June 12th race, which I like. Like, I want him to be able to show some of that. And he has at different times in his career where they can at least keep him within a few lengths. Like what you were talking about with the Quality Chic and what you were talking about also with Warrior Johnny. Can they just sit not dead last in here, because you just don't want that to be the case a lot of the time. He's going to be in the mix for me, the 9. And then the other one I wanted to mention, and I don't think we mentioned, was, we talked a little bit about Artorias, because I think you could just eliminate that race from him last time out in the Salvatore Mile.
Yeah,
What?
he
So
just
what?
didn't fire at
Just
all.
put a line right through it. He just really wasn't comfortable early. He was in a little bit of traffic, and then he was in between horses. It was one of those races where like it felt like a comedy sketch. Like he would just be right behind another horse, and he would kind of move to another spot, and then there would be traffic right there. And then he would move to another spot, and it would just like that spot would close, and he just kept getting pushed back a little bit. And it was one of the, I think early on, Pratt was just like, nah, this isn't our day today. Everything just keeps going against us. But he was only 5-2 there, and he was coming off a string of races that make sense. Like this is a good spot for him if you can just eliminate the Salvatore Mile, like a cut below graded stakes races in these like high level allowance race. That's sort of like a stakes. That's probably the class level that he fits. I think it just comes down to what trip can they get him closer into the race. And I mean, it's never exciting playing a horse off a race like that, but it does bump up your price a lot of the time.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely muddies up the form enough to get a better price. And I think Salute the Stars is probably going to take a lot more money than that 6-1 morning line. I think, they're going to bet those connections, Brad Cox,
And
Gary
Irad.
West and Irad. I think they're going to bet that one down quite a bit. So you may get some inflated prices. Other places like with the 1A, Rocket Can might even float up a bit based on that. So and Classic Catch is another one who has a great shot in here that'll probably be the beneficiary of some of that money going to the one
Yeah.
or the two. I'm sorry, Salute the Stars. But yeah, this is a really interesting race all the way around. But another one where I can't see the favorite winning. I mean, it's definitely possible, but it also depends on who's going to be the favorite. Is it going to be Blaine Sevens or is it going to be Salute the Stars? I don't know. But it's definitely an interesting race because I don't like either one of those horses. So we'll see how it shakes out.
This is just one of those races where like at a mile and an eighth at Saratoga, you see a couple horses start to gasp for some air late. A few of these horses that are
Sure. Yeah.
in striking range, and then late, the complexion of the race can just change quickly. That's race number 9 on opening day at Saratoga. We move to the traditional opening day feature, the Schuylerville, which is race number 10. And we have 2-year-old fillies and a very, very good group of fillies lining up in here from inside to outside. You have horses that have broke their maiden at Churchill Downs with Dial and Long Neck Paula, who were press him over there. We had what in the literal actually win a stakes race here at Saratoga at that Belmont Racing Festival. We saw Carmen's Candy Jar and Complexion look really, really impressive at Belmont at Aqueduct. Down on the inside, Slang and Sherbini were a couple more that won over at Churchill Downs, as did West Memorial. And then Aoki and West Memorial were in that Astoria, where there was some bumping going on between the top two finishers. And it looked like Aoki was going to win that race pretty easily, just the way he was sitting. I think you and I liked him. We talked about this
Yes,
race.
I
Or
bet
her.
him. I
Yeah, her. We
definitely
liked
bet
her
her.
that day. And she looked like she was going to go by. And there was some bumping both ways. It was one of those where I could have seen, I don't think it was so overwhelming that you went, oh, they were going to change it. Because initially it looked like it might have been a little more, I think, coming from Aoki. And then it was a little more the other way from what in the literal. But just inside to outside, man, very tough to knock some of these fillies. I can absolutely like a few more than the others based on their races and what we've seen. But a lot of these horses, these lightly raced horses, they can jump up quite a bit. And all these horses are in here for a reason because they were highly regarded and they've come out and they've run big races already.
Yeah, I mean that's what makes these kind of races super tough because everybody's really got one or two races and they all go fast. It's kind of like the fastest horse wins a lot of the times. And the more they run, the more they get nuanced and doing different things and being able
And
to
they just
settle
can't
stuff
do
like
that,
that. Right.
right?
They're just not seasoned enough at this point to do that sort of thing. So you got to have to think that number 5 Complexion and the 10 Vigidel, or I'm not sure how you say that, but you got to think those two horses will have a little bit of a leg up on these others.
Yeah.
Their races were pretty impressive,
The
both of them
5 was,
respectively, almost like minutes apart too.
I
They
know.
weren't.
Let's watch
It,
complexions first so we can watch the both of them on the replays, which is nice when you're looking at these all access past performances like we have here. You go, boom, one click, you're checking out the replay. And the complexion was the 9 in this race, Barry. And you just watch her. She is just straight to the lead from the outside
Yeah, she's
and
gone.
just
I mean, this
right
is over.
over. Yeah, just crossed over and good night. Trainer Danny Gargan won last year at Saratoga. We know about Dornick. We know
Mhm.
the success that Dornick has had now this year. I mean, what I like too about this, she gets the lead from the outside. She crosses over, and then she gets a little bit of a challenge from the outside, like right here, top of the
She goes
lane.
faster.
And then boom, it's like,
Another
okay,
gear.
shake her up a little bit, and boom, she just puts them away. Visually, I thought this was extremely impressive. And, yeah, I definitely think she's this race was maybe my favorite of any of the horses. And it's not a surprise. She's 7-2.
Yeah, I mean, look at how she pulls away. I mean, you could physically, like, with your eyes, see her feet and legs moving faster
Yep.
mid-stretch than everybody else, and she has another gear for him. And Vigidals was not much different. Some people said it was better performance,
Yeah.
and I can't say it wasn't. Um, but yeah, those two kind of have the run of the
They're
race here. They're definitely the top two. Now, what you got to
Well,
think about,
while we're talking complexion, I want to show one other thing too.
yeah,
So she's actually half sibling to Jack Christopher,
yes,
who was really nice. He won his first 4 races. He was 5 for 6. His only loss came in the Haskell when he had to go a little bit longer. So up to a mile, he was undefeated and a multiple grade 1 winner who earned some big figures. So not only has this horse shown some ability, but has the blood to be a very good one, a very precocious horse, and good all the way up to a mile. So that was complexion. We talked a little bit about Dial. You were heading in a different direction there. Where were you going?
Well, I was just saying that any horse that might be able to slightly rate might have a
Yeah.
big advantage. And I thought honestly, I think Steve Asmussen is holding all the cards between the 1 Aoki and the 10 Vegetal. Either one of those horses, I couldn't blame anybody for liking in this spot.
Yep.
Um, I think West Memorial kind of fluked it out in the Kentucky Juvenile, so I'm not really too keen on that one. And Sherbini is a horse that may be able to rate
Sit
just
the trip.
enough.
She could
Right.
sit a perfect trip. I was reading the article that Dave Grenning posted, just came out on Monday, talking about all the barns at Saratoga and who some of their top 2-year-olds were. This was one that was mentioned by Cassie, and he just said he's going to have more 2-year-olds at Saratoga than he has in previous years, and he just felt like his stock was a little bit better. So maybe a barn to keep an eye on. I totally agree with you. If I was going to do a top 2 in here, my top 2 would probably be 3-5, just because the 3 has shown that she can sit a little bit. I have 0 knocks on the 10, who you're pointing out, as well, Dial, and we talked about Aoki. I mean, Long Neck Paula is the Ward runner, who she was another one that was visually awesome. She debuted at at Churchill on Derby week. So, that's always when they debut horses that they
Oh yeah.
like, or they put those horses in good spots. And her dam was a graded stakes winner. And the concern that I had with her was she looks like she's missing at least 2 works published
At
from June
least.
7th to
Yeah.
June 28th, because that would probably be June 14th, June 21st, and then June 28th, based on what she was doing. So for me, in a race like this where they're all kind of evenly matched, that's just a knock on her right away that I have.
Yeah, I mean, you got to find those little kind of nuances, details, what have you, in order to separate these horses, because they all kind
Mm-hmm.
of look the same. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Aoki might be a little bit more seasoned, especially coming off of that duel
Battling a
um,
little bit,
in the
bumping.
Astoria. Yeah, it has a little bit more seasoning based on those two factors, and probably could come off the pace a little bit.
Yep.
But again, in the one spot is not ideal. Yeah, I mean, even though this horse has run a couple of times previously, still not a good place to be in a 6 furlong race at Saratoga is on the rail. Um, it's not impossible, but definitely this horse, they have the right rider on there, and
It's just going to be
Rosario, who's
trickier.
probably
It's going to
not
be
going to,
a
right.
different trip
They got
than
to
she
work
had
out
last time,
something. Right.
right? probably just taking back a little bit more, like sitting 2 lengths off, I think, instead of having to go and shove up the inside and maybe use a little bit more. A horse like the 4 in
Yeah,
debut,
Slang, same thing.
she's on a sloppy track, and she was one of 4 next out winners in that race. The
Yep.
horse who beat her, Vodka with the Twist, came back and won the debutante. She finished 4th, and then she came back, Slang, and broke her maiden in her next start. Anna Karina, who was 5th, came back and broke her maiden at Churchill with a 66 buyer. And even the last place finisher, Swift Wind, she was in a maiden $100,000 race, and she went over and ran in a stakes race at Prairie Meadows over the weekend. So that was a good race in her debut, and then she comes back in her second start. These races are challenging because she's not far off of what we saw from Complexion. She's got a little seasoning there too. And she showed us that she can sit a little bit if she has to. Carmen's Candy Jar can sit a little bit if she has to. Her win was against New York bred, so she'll have to also prove that, she can beat Open Company as well. But the race came up very strong. There are like
Yeah, I mean,
tiers in this race, and just
these are the kind
many.
of races where you can zero in on like a 6-to-1 shot and have it make your whole day,
Yep.
because that horse wins in a race like this
Yep.
where you get 6-7-to-1. And this is the beauty of Saratoga and race meets like this, is you got those deep competitive fields where you could single, 7, 8-to-1 shots and be in a good position to win a lot of money.
Let's close out the opening day card. We head to race number 11, mile and a 16th on the turf course. These are maiden 40 claimers. These are 3-year-olds and up. And Barry, let's close this thing out, my man. Talk to us about a couple who you'd want on your pick 5 or your pick 4s, or who would you need in this last race?
Yeah, this was a wide open race too. I mean, I safely eliminated the first 3 horses. The 1 Ghost Prince, Get It to Matthew, and Vincita. I just eliminated those horses. I don't think they have a shot in this race. Now, saying that, probably one of them win. But anyway, and I also eliminated the 6 El Alacran. I just think that horse is just a pop and stop in a race like this. Kick a Buck is a horse that will get all the attention here. The barn, Peter Brandt, Chad Brown, Manny Franco, again, has the top buyers in this race, but I just don't see it. I mean,
It's not,
obviously
he
the horse
doesn't,
can win, but
yeah,
why is this horse dropping into 40,000 for a race like this? I don't think there's any upside there at all
no.
in dropping this horse in for 40K. And it just doesn't. It just looks like a bad sign as far as this horse winning. Now the horse could still run well, finish second or third, and everything would look gravy on in the next past performances. But I'm willing to try to play against a horse like this in this kind of race. I thought Battlefield Park has a really good chance.
Me too.
And the other 2 I kind of zeroed in on was Bourbon Outlaw first and foremost. I think that horse was kind of out wide in most of the trips that he's had. So basically, on June 15th, he was the 9 horse out of 10. March 30th, he was 8 out of 11 wide. Uh, February 24th, 7 out of 12. I
Yep.
mean, just wide all the time, and finally gets a pretty decent draw in a lesser race. So
Where he
I
gets
think
to
that's
drop and you just get a better chance to show himself. Yeah.
exactly, and I think this horse might get overlooked a little bit. So 12-to-1 is kind of tentative. I think that might float up a bit. Same thing with Sugar Hook, not so much with the wide trips, but tougher company. This horse is running a maiden special weight 122K down at Churchill, and then another one for 96K. Um, and this is a much easier spot than both of those races. And I think Sugarhook might be okay, getting a good position, kind of settling and then making a run at the top of the stretch to get the lead. And then Battlefield Park, I think that might just be best of the rest. I know the 7 Il Siciliano
That was the horse that I was going to mention. Yeah.
and Battlefield Park kind of looks similar. And I would opt to go with obviously the longer price, and I think Battlefield Park, just based on post position, might be longer. But this race is really wide open.
So Battlefield Park debuted back in December of 2022, was off for a year and a half. Shows back up on June the 2nd, has to need the race, and runs really well. Now, so you see him finishing second that day, and you take a look at the pedigree. Dam was a nice one. She was a 4-time winner on the turf.
Yes,
She was
very
multiple
good.
graded stakes placed, and this is the first full to race. So this horse could be a nice horse on the
Any
grass.
kind, yeah.
Dropping in class at this maiden 40 level really fits. I want to watch one race too on Il Siciliano. So look at his overall body of work. Debut on the dirt sprinting, not relevant for this race going long on the grass. Then second start, April the 13th. At that point, probably still in a little too tough. At that time, April 13th, right there, when the meet was still really strong at Gulfstream, that maiden special weight race, it's a little too tough. A couple weeks later, drops in class for maiden 35, much better effort, finishes third that day. The one that I wanted to take a look at was on May the 18th, because this was a race against maiden special weights. Again, at the time period at Gulfstream, that maiden special weight race, probably comparable, slightly tougher to the race that this is coming up, this maiden 40 at Saratoga. These will be strong or deep contentious races that probably play up a little higher than their level, especially early on in the meet when everyone wants to run a race at Saratoga. So Il Siciliano's the 5 in this race that we're watching here. And
post.
Hey, Pete, what's going on? Pete had a fun weekend and with Gabe. So you get the slowish start from the 5, and we're towards the back, right? Third from the back here, 8th of 11, about maybe 8 lengths off or so right now as the field starts to spread out, and the horse starts to travel pretty well towards the back of the pack. And what we're going to see is, as the race unfolds, this horse is moving well inside and is going to end up getting caught in between horses with nowhere to go, get stalled, and then will come on again nicely up the inside with a really big gallop out. And this was back on May the 18th. Following this race, they took a swing on the synthetic just to see, and that was a race that just didn't really shape up well. There wasn't a whole lot of passing in that race, and maybe he didn't like the synthetic. Now we're going to start to watch him come into the fold. Down on the inside, look at him starting to move, the 5. He's traveling really well, but he's got nowhere to go here. The 2 horses to his outside, he was in front of them, moving better than them, and they got up to the outside of him. He got stopped by the 3. Here he comes again down on the inside after getting stopped. And, if that first time he doesn't get stopped, I don't know if he wins the race, but is he much closer?
Really close.
And finishing beating a mile length and a quarter. Here he comes, and now he's still got to duck down to the inside, and you're going to see a really nice gallop out from the 5 down here, who, absolutely could have been just a little bit closer. I think at this level, I mean, if we're just talking about buyer speed figures, for example, right? His 75 in that race is right there with Kick a Buck, who's going to be way shorter. Shorter.
He looked good skipping over the turf there.
He did.
It looks like he needed that experience, and I think the drop in class might be what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, he fits well in this group. The 10, those are my top 2, 7 and 10, who I like. I'm glad, you were pointing out the 10, the 5, Sugar Hook, definitely one when you're looking at where his races fit with these races. Sure, slight drop in class after facing better, just a little bit over the top, but with these horses, you're looking at, is there 1 or 2 races that they had against better that were competitive?
Yes. Yeah, that's really the key.
For, right? And then they drop down because they're never going to have been consistent and run a winning race every single time, or else they wouldn't be dropping down like this.
Right.
They would just stay at the level if they're really super competitive all the time. Sugar Hook wouldn't shock me. The only thing that's kind of weird about this race, where I might throw in 1 ticket with the 6, just with Javi jumping aboard.
Yeah, because the
really
pace looks murky. Right.
Yeah,
he's the only speed.
That's
I
for
thought
sure.
I thought the 10
2
might
And maybe the
actually
2.
jump,
Me too, yeah.
might jump the try to get out there
I think they
and
should.
force the issue. Yeah,
I
I
agree.
think they should really gun it and try to get
From
with the
outside.
lead. Yeah.
Be more forwardly placed, and the 2 also who showed a little bit of speed in that debut, wouldn't be shocked to see either of those horses
But I
more
think the
forward.
4, that's why I say the 4. I think the 4 might be
Could just
forwardly
sit
placed here.
with Johnny V, could sit a little bit closer, not have to be as wide. Like, this is one of those types of horses where you make a sort of tactical decision before the race even. Hey, look, we've been wide these last couple races. We haven't had a chance at all. Now we're getting a better draw. Let's just get really aggressive in this race. And
Right.
maybe we're
Let's
not on the
get
lead,
him
but
in the
let's just
race. Yeah.
give him a shot and let's see if it's really the trip that's been the problem, or maybe we got to change something up. And those are the types of horses where you have a very, very good Hall of Fame veteran rider like this make a decision like that. That sometimes is the winning decision. And these races are not easy.
No,
You're going to have to
not
just
at all.
pick the 1 or 2 where you're going to shorten up and you're going to take a stand. Hopefully we were able to lead you to a few that maybe were not on your radar there. And we'll be back all throughout the meet. I'm going to put a video out with a few best bets for Friday, and then Barry's going to join me to go over the late pick 5 for Saturday. So we'll have you covered for those first few days of Saratoga opening week. Then next week, Del Mar will join the party.
Oh yeah.
So we'll probably have both. Like, we'll probably have a couple different videos with Barry throughout the week. Maybe one where we talk some Saratoga, maybe one where we talk some Del Mar. Want to remind everyone all throughout the meet that Saratoga handicapping store at shop.drf.com. Past performances, picks, clocker reports, and then the betting strategies on Saturday. Don't forget about the DRF YouTube channel. Dan Illman does such a great job
He's the man
over there. Oh, Dan is the man. He does previews of basically every stakes race in the US, like all
ever.
the graded stakes races, but like anywhere that there's big races going, it's Dan and someone, or it's someone on the YouTube channel that Dan is completely in charge of. You see a lot of Mike Beer, a lot of Ashley Mayu. I'm on there doing some stuff with David this week. I think we're previewing a couple of the Saratoga races. So what's cool about that is it's free. You get a bunch of free help there too from the DRF handicappers. And so take all this information in that you can. Maybe you can learn some things from some of these different people that you may not even take that day, but maybe it helps you the next week or a week after. And Barry, man, I'm excited. I'm pumped. Looking forward to this next 6 weeks to 2 months we have of some real quality racing. Talk to everybody about where we can find you, what's going on with you. I saw you up with the Wolf of Oaklawn the other day. Ow!
The Wolfie,
Chatting with
the
Chase.
AI wolf. Yeah.
He's the king at the AI stuff, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's great at those.
Yeah, I do some stuff with him. I'm actually doing another podcast at the end of the week with him, $100 budget thing where we kind of make our plays throughout a whole card. But other than that, it's just me and you, Gino, until our buddy Chuck comes back into the fold after he's all healed up and ready to go. But I enjoy everybody, and this is the stuff we love, man. I can't say that enough. I know 2 years ago I was in the backyard at Saratoga. I hadn't been there since 2009, and I was hanging in the back with Mike Beer and Dan Illman that day. So
Awesome.
yeah, it was kind of bittersweet because it was full circle because it's a 4-star Dave weekend, and Casa Creed won,
Oh
and now
yeah,
that horse retired. So
tired.
I was hoping to see him again this year, but you know,
Father time, right?
yeah, it happens. Catches up to everybody. Trust me.
Shout out to Chuck. Hope you're doing well out there, Chuck. We're always thinking about you. Everybody on horse racing Twitter. We know you love Saratoga coming up. So and don't worry, man. I'll keep you plenty busy over the
Oh
next
yeah,
little bit. I'll keep you
I
plenty.
don't doubt it.
Exactly. So I'm looking forward to it. Always love chatting. Thank you for doing the work as always, my friend. And yeah, we'll talk again in a couple days. We'll get everybody set up for Saratoga for Saturday on a really fun Saturday card. If you want to start handicapping those races, you can do so right now. Those races are up. We're going to look at the late pick 5 for Saturday at Saratoga this weekend. Thanks again, everyone. Remember, if you can, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're listening on the podcast, we have a lot more to come. We're actually going to be following this on the podcast, we have deep dive reviews of Disney's new show, the Star Wars show, The Acolyte on Disney Plus. We're up to episodes 5 and 6. We have deep dives of those, and then episode 7 will be coming out later this week. So if you're a fan of Star Wars and you want to follow along with us, we get in depth and nerdy talking Star Wars, just like we do about horse racing on That's What G Said podcast. Barry, love you, buddy. Let's crush it all throughout the Saratoga meet. It's like when you're a fan of a team and it's that like the first day of the season, right? Because the hopes you've got the high hopes, because for any one of you listening out there, there's a $5,000, a $10,000, a $20,000, a $30,000 ticket or a day with your name on it, right? It's just, can I get there? Can I be in the right mental space? Can I put the tickets together in the right way? We're all going to have those days where our opinion is that good. Can we just make the best out of it? I hope you all do, all throughout the Saratoga meet. And I look forward to chatting racing with you, Barry, all throughout the meet. Good luck, folks.